So everyday flashlight batteries are belongs to galvanic cells. So this is the cross-sectional view. How it is going to function? There is a manganese dioxide into which carbon rod has been immersed, and there is a zinc container which is going to act as anode, and carbon rod or graphite rod which has been immersed into manganese dioxide is going to work like cathode, work as cathode. So what you will be doing usually, you will be switching on and switching off. Once the switch is brought to on position, there will be internal contact between the zinc and the manganese dioxide, which is present along with the carbon rod or graphite rod. So simultaneous reduction and oxidation reaction is going to be taken place when you bring the switch into on position. So due to that simultaneous or parallel the redox reaction is going to be taken place, and consequently the electrons are going to be released due to the oxidation. That electrons are going to be captured by the species which is capable to undergo reduction, and hence the generated current is utilized in order to blow the bulb. This is the simple principle we can see while using everyday or flashlight batteries. And this is lithium ion batteries, what you will be using in mobile phones. So are you aware about the mobile phones which will be employing lithium ion batteries? So that is also having cathode and anode. One should be cathodic and another should be anodic. Two important electrodes are required in any electrochemical cell, two electrodes, and those two electrodes are immersed into electrolytes. They may be aqueous or non-aqueous, whatever it is. And both the electrodes must be separated by a typical membrane or a separator, whatever it is. So these lithium ion batteries are chargeable batteries. Lithium ion batteries are chargeable batteries. They too have their lifetimes, their own lifetimes, but the everyday batteries have also got their lifetimes, but they are not chargeable. Once the activity of manganese dioxide is over, then those batteries are going to be useless. As long as manganese, manganese species which is present inside this, that everyday battery or flashlight battery is present active, that battery is going to be useful. Due to the chemical conversion of that manganese, that means to say that will be undergoing reduction. If the ability of the manganese to undergo reduction means the whole amount of the manganese has undergone reduction, then its lifetime is over. So everyday battery lifetime is also over. That's how we can fix the lifetime. But chargeable batteries, you can say lithium ion batteries, they are able to get charged and discharged. What will happen during the charging and discharging process of these lithium ion batteries? When you put them for charging, lithium ion is going to be produced during the discharge process. During the discharge process, there is a component called as lithium cobalt dioxide. Lithium cobalt dioxide is going to be the species we will be using in lithium ion batteries. During the discharge process, lithium is going to be converted into lithium ion. Lithium ion. Why it will be converted into lithium ion? Because it is going to undergo oxidation. The lithium present in LiCoO2 is going to undergo oxidation. So one electron has been removed. The electron is going to be released during the discharge process. So lithium ion is going to be produced. Once the discharge is over, the activity of the lithium ion or the concentration of the lithium ion will be more. You will keep the battery for charging. What will happen during the charging? In the charging process, the electron is going to be added in order to convert Li plus to Li. Means the ionic lithium has been brought to its original position, original state, which was present in LiCoO2. So Li plus has been converted into Li during the charging process. Means charging means passing the electricity. Passing the electricity means passing the electrons. Where the electrons are moving? The electrons are moving towards the ionic lithium, where the electrons are captured by the ionic lithium in order to get converted into elemental lithium. Therefore, during the charging, Li plus is going to be becoming chargeless, which is in contact with the non-aqueous electrolyte. During the discharging process, the chargeless lithium is going to be converted into charged lithium. Therefore, the charging and discharging takes place. So here, the spontaneity is okay. Spontaneity is okay. The chemical energy has been converted into electrical energy. Chemical energy has been converted into electrical energy. What type of chemical energy you are going to utilize here? The chemical energy of the lithium. Lithium you are going to use as a chemical energy. During the charging and discharging process, conversion of ionic lithium to elemental lithium or conversion of elemental lithium to ionic lithium is the chemical conversion, is the chemical transformation. It is going to be the chemical energy. Your mobile phone will be working, your flashlight will be working. Why? Because the chemical energy in the form of lithium has been converted into electrical energy. So these type of electrochemical cells are called as galvanic cells or voltaic cells. If you look at here, the electrolysis of water. Electrolysis of water will be performed by means of a typical electrochemical cell, and here the chemical reaction happening is completely in opposite to the chemical reactions they will occur in galvanic cells or voltaic cells. You can look at here two electrodes, one electrode and the other electrode have been immersed into water. The electrochemical cell has been separated into two different compartments. Into one compartment, one electrode has been immersed. Into another compartment, another electrode has been immersed. They are named as cathode and anode respectively. Both of them have been connected to a power supply device. Because we need to apply the electrical energy, we need to apply the potential difference, because this is going to be the electrolytic cell. That's what electrolysis of water is going to be explained here. A permeable membrane which is permeable to the hydrogen ion from anode to cathode. The membrane is placed in between anode and cathode in such a way that the permittivity of the hydrogen ion is permitted. The access of the hydrogen ion through this membrane is permitted. Okay, when you apply the potential difference, water undergo electrolysis to get converted into oxygen, hydrogen ion and electron. Since this is going to be the anode, the reaction must be oxidation. This is going to be the anode, the reaction must be oxidation. Water undergo oxidation to get converted into dioxygen with the consequent releasing of hydrogen ion. And this hydrogen ion concentration is very high in this particular compartment. So it will start to move towards the compartment at which the hydrogen ion concentration is less. So hydrogen ion from the anode compartment is going to start to move towards the cathode compartment, where the hydrogen ion must be undergoing reduction process because cathode electrode has been immersed into this particular compartment. As a consequence of the presence of the cathode in this compartment, the reduction process must be obvious, and as a result of the reduction process, the hydrogen ion which is moving from the anode to cathode undergoing reduction to get converted into hydrogen gas. So at the cathode, hydrogen gas is releasing, at the anode, oxygen gas is releasing. And you can see the bubbling action of the hydrogen gas and oxygen gas at the cathode and anode respectively. So this electrolysis of water will initiate the releasing of hydrogen and oxygen at the cathode and anode respectively. And this is due to the consequence of the conversion of water to oxygen and hydrogen, and they are taking place at the anode and cathode respectively. And you can see here in any galvanic cell or voltaic cell, anode will be connected to the negative terminal of the electrical energy measuring device, and cathode will be connected to the positive terminal. Here it is vice versa. Anode is going to be positive terminal of the power supply device and cathode is going to be negative terminal of the power supply device. Now you are very clear about the galvanic cell or voltaic cell and the electrolytic cell. Galvanic cell can be used to convert the chemical energy into electrical energy, whereas electrolytic cells are used to convert the electrical energy to chemical energy. What is the electrical energy we have used here? Potential difference we have used, and we have converted we have converted water to oxygen and hydrogen, water to oxygen and hydrogen. So that's how we can distinguish the galvanic cell and electrolytic cells. So you take any electrochemical cell, two electrodes will be using, and one will be anode and the other one will be cathode. So what is anode? It is very simple to define. Anode is the electrode at which always oxidation occurs. Anode is the electrode, whatever the electrochemical cell, whether you take galvanic type of cells or voltaic type of cells and electrolytic cells, whatever the electrochemical cell you are going to employ, if the oxidation is going to be the chemical reaction takes place, the electrode must be anode. And if the electrode is responsible for the reduction reaction, then the electrode is called as cathode. So very simple example in order to elaborate the discussion on voltaic or galvanic cells is going to be potentiometry. Potentiometric titration of iron using cerium, you assume that experiment. What you will be doing? Iron 2 is going to be the reducing agent, cerium 4 is going to be the oxidizing agent. You will be converting iron 2 to iron 3 and cerium 4 to cerium 3. There is a generation of the potential difference that is going to be the electrical energy due to the chemical reaction between iron 2 and cerium 4. There is a generation of the huge amount of the potential difference, the change in potential difference you are going to measure at the point of equivalence, or at the equivalence point you are going to make out the rapid change in the potential difference that is going to be the electrical energy. This is what we will be measuring in potentiometric titrations. So the electrochemical cell which is used in potentiometry is called as voltaic or galvanic cell. In rest of the methods such as voltammetry, amperometry, polarography, stripping voltammetry, cyclic voltammetry, etc., where we will be measuring the current, by application of the voltage. By application of the voltage, what is the amount of the current generated? So even the measurement of the current is in the context of the time. In a particular interval of time, what is the amount of the current generated we will be measuring, or we will be passing the current through the electrode through the electrochemical solution. Then we will be converting the species present in the solution into some other state. And during that particular duration, what is the quantum, what is the quantity of the species converted into some other form, that will be measured in coulometry. So the electrolytic type of cells, the electrolytic type of electrochemical cells are employed in voltammetry, where more importantly, the current is going to be measured. So the electrochemical analysis will be done in two ways by utilizing two types of electroanalytical methods. So one is going to be the bulk methods of analysis and the other one is interfacial methods. What is bulk method? As the name is implying, the overall property of the whole solution is going to be measured by using the electrochemical methods under the bulk methods. We will be using the whole property of the whole solution, the overall property of the whole solution. If you have taken 50 ml of the solution, the whole property of that 50 ml solution is going to be considered in bulk methods. Say for example, conductance measurement. What do you do in that? You will be measuring the solution's conductivity. The conductivity is directly proportional to the total concentration of the dissolved ions. The mobility of the ions, the mobility of the total ions present in the solution is responsible for conductivity. Movement increases as the solution diluted. So conductivity is going to be as the consequence of the movement of the ions. So this is measured, this is responsible in bulk methods. In bulk electroanalytical methods, the properties are going to be measured for the whole solution, In the interfacial methods, what is the process occurring between the electrode and the solution interface? You will be immersing the electrode into the solution. Not the 100% of the electrode body is becoming responsible in measuring the electrical property. It may be current or potential, whatever it is. The tip of the electrode will be immersed into the solution, and in between the electrode surface and the solution, there is an interface. The analyte contribution at the interface between the electrode surface and the solution is going to be employed in the interfacial methods. So the signal, whatever we are going to measure in interfacial methods, is in respect to only at the interface between an electrode and the solution which is in contact with the electrode. Say for example, measurement of the potential or the pH. pH means there is a glass electrode. We will be using a glass electrode. What glass electrode comprised of? Glass electrode is having a membrane, and through the membrane the accession of the hydrogen ion will be anticipated. So whatever the hydrogen ion present at the interface of the electrode will migrate through the membrane of the glass electrode. So we will be having the information given by the amplifier in the form of the signal, and that signal is going to be utilized in order to obtain the concentration of the analyte present in the sample. So these type of methods are called as interfacial methods. So the whole electroanalytical methods will be belonging to the family of interfacial electroanalytical methods. Interfacial electrochemical methods or interfacial electroanalytical methods. The whole electroanalytical methods, whatever we will discuss. So majorly, except the conductometric methods, if you take potentiometric methods, if you take amperometric methods, if you take voltammetric methods, if you take stripping methods, whatever it is, most of them will be belonging to interfacial electrochemical methods. In the interfacial electrochemical methods, the analysis will be done in two ways. Number one is, say for example, potentiometry. In potentiometry, you will not be aware about the current. You are not going to either measure the current or to pass the current through the electrode or through the solution. What you will be interested? You will be interested only to record the potential difference. You will have cathode, you will have anode, you will immerse both of them into the solution. You keep on adding the titrant, you keep on mixing the two reactants, and you will be measuring the potential difference at different intervals of the different course of the chemical reaction. This will be seen in potentiometry. You are not at any point, you will not be aware about the current. So that type of electrochemical methods are called as static methods, in which there will be no generation of the current. We are not going to utilize the information of current because there is no generation of the current is going to be happened there. So such type of electrochemical methods are called as static methods. In contrast to the static methods, dynamic methods, in which there is a generation or there is a passage of the non-zero current. The current will not be absolutely zero, must be greater than zero or must be less than zero, whatever it is. So there is a passage or the generation of non-zero current through the solution or through the electrode will be seen in dynamic methods. Say for example, coulometric methods. Coulometric methods may be either by controlling the current or by controlling the potential. You may maintain the current at a constant level for a particular interval of time. You may maintain potential for a particular interval of time. Whatever the process, whatever the technique you are employing, whatever the methodology you are following, there is a generation or there is a maintenance of a non-zero current. These type of electroanalytical methods are called as dynamic methods. So, for example, a controlled coulometric method will be employed in order to perform coulometric analysis. The principle you will be studying when we come to the coulometric method of analysis. Controlled potential analysis will be done in two ways, either by fixing the potential at a constant level for a particular interval of time, or by varying the potential in a regular increment or in an irregular increment, whatever it is. Controlled potential analysis will be done either by fixing the potential for a particular interval for a particular interval of time, or by varying the potential regularly or irregularly with respect to increment. So variable potential analysis, variable potential electrochemical methods are very popular in the name of voltammetric analysis. Voltammetry, we will apply the voltage, then we will measure the current. We will apply the voltage, we will make the species to involve in the chemical reaction. Due to the chemical reaction means reduction and oxidation, simultaneous reduction oxidation going to be taken place, current is going to be generated, that generated current is going to be recorded, that's it. And fixed potential analysis, particularly in amperometric titration, means we will be adding the titrant where the 3 electrode system will be utilized. the generation of the current is going to be measured. That's what amperometry, measurement of current. Due to the simultaneous reduction and oxidation reaction, there is some amount of the current generated. That the generated current is going to be recorded. Just like thermometric titration, we will be measuring the temperature there. Here we will be measuring the current, amperes, number of amperes of current we will be recording. Such titrations are called as amperometric titrations. And even current is going to be controlled for particular interval of time, and the species is going to be converted into different form. After the interval is over, we will be recording whether the reaction is completed or not by using different techniques such as potentiometry or using chemical indicators, some other different devices. We will be coming to know whether the chemical reaction is over or not. You will see when we come to that particular respective technique. So I told you controlled potential or variable potential analysis. Variable potential analysis principle will be utilized for voltammetry. Voltammetry means it is an electroanalytical technique in which, as a consequence of the variation of the voltage, the generation of the current is recorded. The amount of current generated is going to be recorded after each and every variation of the voltage. That is called as voltammetry. This will be done in two ways. Solution must be kept quiescent or under stirred mode. Throughout the analysis, the solution will be keep on stirring. Throughout the analysis, the solution will be kept quiescent. Means we should not disturb the solution. But both the states, stirred states and quiescent states, are employed for stripping voltammetric technique. So you will come across the principle of stripping voltammetry when we come to this particular topic. Don't worry about that. So in under stirred mode, hydrodynamic voltammetric analysis will be done. Under quiescent mode, polarography as stationary electrovoltammetry, pulse polarography and voltammetry, and cyclic voltammetric analysis will be done. So all these electroanalytical methods will be obeying the principle of voltammetry. And this is a overall family tree of interfacial electrochemical methods, what I have presented so far. So interfacial electrochemical methods are classified into static methods and dynamic methods. Static methods are nothing but where there will be there will not be any generation of the current. I will be equal to 0. In dynamic methods, there will be generation of the current, non-zero current will be passing or will be applied. So very suitable example is potentiometry for static methods. For dynamic methods, controlled potential analysis and controlled current analysis will be done. Controlled current coulometry is the example for controlled current analysis, and controlled potential manner will be applied either in fixed mode or in variable mode. So in fixed mode, amperometric and controlled potential coulometric method will be operated, and in variable potential mode, voltammetry is the only technique in which stirred state and unstirred state will be followed. Both the states are employed in stripping voltammetric technique. So stirred mode will be employed in hydrodynamic voltammetry, and quiescent mode will be employed in polarography and stationary electrovoltammetry, pulse polarography and cyclic voltammetry. So this is about the family tree for the classification of interfacial electrochemical methods. So let us caption the classification of electroanalytical methods. They are classified into two types: bulk methods and interfacial methods. In the bulk methods, the whole property of the bulk of the solution is going to be measured. That's what they are called as bulk methods. Say, for example, conductometric analysis. The conductance is due to the overall ions present in the solution. And in the interfacial methods, we are going to measure the electrical property at the interface between the solution and the electrode. And dependent upon the principle of different electroanalytical methods, the interfacial methods are put under static and dynamic methods, because in some methods we are not going to employ the current, and in some methods we are going to generate or we are going to pass some non-zero current. So, and that's how this partial family tree can be presented.